Recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to personally thank everyone that's come tonight. It's always exciting to see the public show up to these meetings and give us their input on what the city is doing for them. So, there is a change to our agenda, a slight amendment. Under new business, we are replacing item number 1 with item number 3. So if you wanted to make a note of that, we are going to be jumping item number 3 up to the number 1 spot. First item on our agenda tonight is a commission report. Commissioner Pinnell.
I have no report.
Commissioner Olson.
Excuse me, tomorrow night I have a Mason Transit Authority Board meeting, and that's all I have for the week, other than Thursday for the State of the Community dinner.
Thank you. Wednesday I will be attending a Criminal Justice Committee meeting, and then of course Thursday evening will be the State of the Community address, where the port and the county and the city all give a statement about their affairs to the community. And that's, I believe, at the Pavilion, and it's open to the public, and it starts around 6:30 or 7 o'clock. Could be 6 o'clock, but 6 o'clock. Sounds good. Next is an opportunity for general public comment. If you've come to talk about a specific item, you might want to wait until we discuss that item, but this is one opportunity for a public comment on general affairs. So if you want to speak about a specific item, there'll be opportunity to do that when we get to that. We do have somebody that wants to speak, I believe, now, and it's Deborah, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name, so. Soper?
Soper.
Soper, okay, very good.
I'm speaking in response to the proposal to add the acreage on Highway 102 between the State Patrol and the Correctional Center to Shelton's urban growth area. Steve Goins reported that the intention is to use that land for industrial purposes. My concern is that the area being considered is a critical aquifer recharge area, a CARA, an area with a critical recharging effect on aquifers used as a source for potable water and vulnerable to contamination from recharge. Because of that designation, certain uses or activities are prohibited. Among them, wood preserving, electroplating, feedlots, hazardous waste transfer and treatment. Many other uses will require environmental permits, including but not limited to chemical manufacturing, facilities that conduct biological research, chemical research facilities, sawmills, and fully contained wood preserving operations. In his presentation to the Mason County Commissioners last week, Matt Matayoshi referenced the industry cluster study by the Pacific Mountain Workforce Development Council. The study selected 5 key target clusters that show strong potential for growth and diversification of the regional economy. Thus, we can expect these types of industries to be targeted for our area. Food production, which can include raising animals or crops, canning, processing. Life sciences, which includes industries involved in the development and manufacturing of healthcare products. Wood product and paper manufacturers, chemical products and plastics manufacturing, and IT telecommunications. Each of these industries has the potential to require environmental permits and the requisite oversight. Historically, it appears that prohibited and potentially hazardous industries have been permitted over the CARAs in this area. For these industries, the Mason County Resource Ordinance requires that best management practices be implemented and maintained. One requirement is regular inspections for compliance as appropriate to the activity, but not less than once in 2 years. I'm not sure these inspections are being done or the businesses are being monitored. The county doesn't have a compliance officer for these purposes at this time. The potential for contamination of our drinking water is a huge concern because, as the cities of Tumwater and Vancouver discovered, cleanup is expensive and time-consuming if it can even be done. EPA studies have shown that investing funds for groundwater protection is cost-effective compared to groundwater cleanup. At this time, I'd just like you to be aware that the area you are considering adding to the urban growth area for industry is an environmentally sensitive area that is going to need special attention if you intend to protect the drinking water of the city and the surrounding areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. All right, next what we are going to do is we're going to recess out of our regular meeting and open a public hearing for an ordinance, and this ordinance will be on enacting a temporary moratorium on the establishment of new adult-oriented businesses, including espresso stands, commonly referred to as bikini baristas. And what we're going to have is a hearing, and we're going to be presented on the information on this by our Community Economics Development Director, Mr. Steve Goins.
Statutes require that within 60 days of passing a moratorium, we hold a public hearing. One of our purposes tonight is to hear from the public about these proposed land uses and have a dialogue with the community about what would be considered and how we should move forward. Staff has put together 3 alternatives that I think should be part of the discussion. We've copied ordinances from 3 different jurisdictions that take an approach in sort of 3 different ways on how to regulate a business like this. And basically, you can regulate the business or you can regulate the activity. And these approaches take a different tact in that. One is basically barring public nudity. And a second approach would be allowing the business to operate, but as an adult-oriented business. And then there's a third process that sort of regulates the business itself. I have some copies here. I thought I'd pass those out. And if you want to discuss those briefly, we can have a back and forth. The city attorney's here to discuss these as well and how to move forward. And we also wanted to open it up for the public tonight.
Very good. Yes, we have an opportunity for public testimony on this.
This is one.
When we do get to the public testimony part on this, everyone is welcome to speak. We do have a 3-minute time limit. And if someone is speaking that is the same kind of supporting your wish or what you want us to talk about, maybe you don't be afraid to cut your testimony down to 1 minute. You can all do 3 minutes, but we have 2 different public hearings tonight. So it's just kind of like everyone is welcome to speak, but if you want to not use your full 3 minutes, you can easily allow that to go to the next person. This is the first time that we've gotten this information, so this will be something that we have to take home and study also. Unless you're one of them speed readers, which I'm not.
So just to briefly walk you through these, there's one from Kitsap County. The title is Chapter 1054, Limited Apparel Businesses. Basically, this provides a definition of what that is and develops standards for how you're going to regulate that industry, if you will, including this sign that's in page 2 of the standards that would be required to be placed at a prominent location in front of the business. And it limits its location, as you can see. A second option from the city of Bonnie Lake is titled Chapter 905, Public Nudity. And this basically defines what that is and what a public place is and what is prohibited. Its intention, of course, is to define what would be unacceptable and places that all businesses within that category and all public places within that category as well. The third option is from Snohomish County. This is titled Chapter 16.30, Adult Businesses and Employees. And it's very similar in some respects to the first ordinance. Defines a number of adult-oriented activities. This is very similar to our ordinance that we currently have, but it includes provisions that would address this specific use that we're considering here this evening. So those are three approaches that have been taken by the jurisdictions.
I guess we have an opportunity for, as the commissioners, to speak what we think about this at this time, and then we'll open this up to public testimony. And so I guess we all may have a little something we want to say now. I will have more to say after I study this possibly. So Commissioner Pennell, did you have anything you wanted to add at this time?
I would just as soon hear the public comment first.
Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll follow that recommendation. We'll talk after we hear the public testimony. Does that sound?
That's fine. I do have one question for Steve, if he would kind of go over how this came about, why we have the moratorium and how that started, and kind of clear up some of the misconceptions of whether somebody actually applied or if it was just a suggestion.
I wasn't very engaged in the initial processes of establishing the moratorium. I think perhaps Dave and Kathleen could give you a more full picture of that.
Mayor came and talked to me about a business that was intending to open. Heard it on good authority that from several sources that the intention was to establish a place where nudity or partial nudity would be the norm. And so then it took it from there, and I created the moratorium. It happened very quickly, over a matter of less than a day. We put it together for the meeting last month when we put it together.
So nobody actually ever applied for a business license for this business?
We had inquiries from a potential tenant to our community development department, but they were verbal inquiries. We did not have any application.
I might add at this time that what the administrator and I had talked about 6 months ago, there was also a rumor of, I think, a bikini barista opening up in the Mountain View area, and we had talked about what should we do, how was our ordinances a little bit, and we started the dialogue 6 months ago about what would we do, and we probably just dropped the ball, basically. And then when a new situation arose, I thought that because this ordinance hadn't been looked at since 2005, that it might be a good opportunity to revisit and make sure that what we do decide as a community, that it is current and up to date with what the community wants. So this conversation did start 6 months ago when we had heard of something, but we didn't pursue it at that time, and this time we decided to pursue it because we have, since 2005, we have an 8-year, which we have not looked at this ordinance. So that's my recollection. Did you want to add anything to that, Kathleen?
Just to clarify, I was the one who pulled the sample codes for Steve to hand out today. There are 3 examples that I was able to find fairly easily. They're different in that the Snohomish County and the Kitsap County approach contemplates that baristas will be wearing essentially less than a bathing suit. And because they will be wearing less than a bathing suit, there's contemplations of body paint and pasties and other sorts of attire you wouldn't see in the general public. they'll be regulated as adult businesses. They'll be allowed to operate, but they will be confined to certain zones. They will be required to put up screens, required to warn that their content may not be appropriate for families. You can contrast that with the Bonnie Lake approach, which essentially bans anyone, barista, member of the public, anyone who is in outside a private environment or a private club from wearing less than a bathing suit. So you can't essentially have an espresso stand that operates as an adult business.
Okay. Well, I think this is what a lot of people are here to talk about tonight, so I think I'd like to open this up. If you'd like to speak on this subject, we have a sign-up sheet right over there by our administration assistant, Vicki Look, and you can just sign. You put where you basically your address is, and then we have a 3-minute time limit. And so if anybody would like to talk now, before we talk, which we've already been doing, but you can sign in and talk about that now if you want to. Do you have a question?
Well, I didn't sign up.
Well, then you should sign up. Come on up, write your name and address down, and we can all hear your question.
Just a quick question.
You got to sign.
Question.
You got to follow the rules.
Okay, wait a minute.
You're like what I used to do when I came in here. I didn't want to sign up either, but then they taught me how.
Quiet. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I even forgot my phone number. I'm sorry. I'm getting old. Okay, hi, hello. My only question is, this says the ordinance of this bikini thing we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, is that just for the city or for the county?
City. It's only city.
Well, do we already have one in the county?
I'm not aware of what the county, no, I don't know what the county has for their ordinance or on that.
You don't know if we already have a bikini place?
I don't think we do.
think there
Ooh,
is.
well, there may be. Yeah, there might be.
You don't know?
Do you
Okay.
know? Do you know?
No, I don't,
Okay.
but it's pretty close to Gorst, isn't it? I mean, Belfair? Belfair got one?
I've never been there, so I do not know. If there is one, that's the county's ordinance. This is the city of Shelton.
Just for the city?
This is the city
Oh.
of Shelton.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Cooper, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this issue. My name is Tom Davis. I live at 170 West Bushy Road. If you go on the internet or you've been to the beach or you watch television, you can see pretty much what less than a bathing suit is. I have less of an issue with the nudity aspect or the morality aspect of this as I have with the value aspect of this. A Bikini Barista is an advertisement from the community to the businesses and to our young people, saying that, especially our young women, saying that your value is in your body, that your worth is in what you're willing to share with the public. I find it despicable. And I think while I certainly do agree that it should go through due process, I think that it behooves the city to not allow this type of business in the city limits. Because by doing so, you condone this kind of behavior. And again, this is not, I'm not speaking moralistically. I'm speaking just because I don't want that message to be sent to young people, especially young girls, that they have no value, that their monetary value is in what they're willing to share with the public in terms of exposing their body. This is a no-brainer. I think if you take a poll of this community, you'd be hard put to find a handful of people that say, yeah, this is a great idea. This is my community. This is what I want to see on our main drag here. This is how I want to advertise us to other businesses who consider us seriously to moving here. Well, that's what we want to see right downtown where we want the resurgence of business, where we want good, solid businesses. This is what we want to see. We want to see scantily clad women serving coffee, and who knows where it goes from here. The county does have a bikini barista up in Belfair, and there has been some problems with it. They have one in Gorst, my understanding is, where some of the activity has gone beyond just serving coffee. So I would very much appreciate that you reflect the values of this community and say no to bikini baristas. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. Mr. Cooper, did you want to sign in on this?
All right, my name's Forrest Cooper. I own Cooper Studios down on the 400 block of Railroad Avenue. And thank you, Mr. Mayor and the Commission, for giving me this opportunity to speak. I really like everything that Tom had to say about value and about our young women aspect. One thing that I want to talk about a little bit here is what it does for the local businesses surrounding these type of establishments. One of the rumors that had went through, and I know that some of the reason that this came to be was because of a espresso stand that changed tenants here just recently, that is actually kitty corner to our location, directly across from the museum downtown. And it's also in the parking lot of a family dining establishment. And I know that this particular business was looking into the bikini barista aspect, and I'm referring to the Daisy Duke Espresso, which they actually now are open and are wearing short shorts, you know, showing just about the bottom of the buttocks area. How do you word that right? You know? Short shorts is fine. My concern with this is watching how everything played out with this transition was really disconcerting to me as a building owner and a business owner, and the fact that we had a locally owned, well-established espresso stand operating there that had no plans of moving. And I actually saw their business listed on Craigslist one night and went to them and said, "You guys are moving? I saw you on Craigslist." And they said, "You did?" The owner wanted to increase their rent on them to make more money. And by doing that, he was able to locate somebody from out of town to come in and do this kind of business. And so that particular owner, as I understand it, isn't locally here.
Maybe we should.
So I don't want to, I'm not attacking them as a business, but
I just want to keep it,
what I'm trying to get to here is that these type of establishments aren't good for the businesses that are immediately around them. And in that particular instance, we had a very community-involved business that was there that the landlord decided it was a better opportunity to move in somebody with this type of establishment. And I just hope we don't see more of that happening. So I just want to encourage the building owners to remember what's best for our community and not what's best for your pocketbooks. Try and keep that retail downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Yeah, we want to be careful with our comments, I think, you know, to talk about certain people. You know, we don't want to name names on people and stuff. We're here to try and come together and figure out what's best for the community. And so, anyway, next we have, it looks like, Miss Chapman.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Jeannie Chapman, and my mailing address is P.O. Box 366 here in Shelton. I've lived here for 26 years. I just wanted to say that I hope that this thing with the bikini baristas does not go through. I remember what happened some years ago when you didn't have a moratorium against these things in place, and somebody was operating an adult video place up there at Gateway Center. I think it was in a building across the way from the driver's license place. He didn't stay too long, but like I said, there wasn't any moratorium in place. It was put in place after he got there. But I just don't think that it fit. This is a small town, and Railroad Avenue is Main Street. In less than 3 months, the Forest Festival is going to be held. There's going to be families and kids and things all over the place. That kind of thing doesn't belong here in a small town, and that's all. I just hope that there's a moratorium in place. And somebody mentioned here a few minutes ago about the theater. If there isn't something in place that keeps these people like this out of here, someday somebody may come in and want to change that theater into adult theater, and then what? You know, there wouldn't be any place for anybody to go to the theater around here. So that's all I wanted to say. I hope that you just put something in place that is permanent and it keeps these folks out of here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kevin and Kathy Dorsey. And/or.
I guess my husband is bailing on me. I'm Kathy Dorsey. We really hadn't planned on talking tonight. I think I just want to say we would agree with the first gentleman. In my mind, we have never been here to talk about not allowing, we own a Rockwell coffee shop, so about other coffee shops coming into town. That is not our worry. Our worry is, in my opinion, that young females already have way too much trouble with their self-esteem and issues in life, and at the age that they're getting barista jobs, they're not thinking what really matters to them in 4 or 5 years for them, and what it means to dress very scantily so they can get attention or money. And I think we as a community owe our young girls more, and we want to teach them that they're worth more than a few extra dollars on a tip, or being able to get attention in that way. And we want to teach them a better way to get their self-esteem. I know personally, one of our girls one time, we walked in, she had a halter top on, I couldn't even tell she had a top on. Went home, I got her a shirt, said, no, this is not the way that we expect you to dress. And it's for their own safety. I guess that's the other thing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Moving right along, it looks like Bonnie Aldridge. Very good. I got the Bonnie right?
I have never in my life gotten up and spoke, but I feel so strongly on this issue. I felt like I had to say something. One of my concerns is we already have a shortage of law enforcement. There's been cuts. We don't have extra money to do follow-up on complaints to this type of thing, so they're probably just going to end up sliding. And is this what we want to teach our young? And is this what we as a town want to represent? To them, it's only about the almighty dollar. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. And last on this list is a Ralph Aldridge. You guys must be related, huh?
I'm Ralph Aldridge. We live on 415 South 13th, and it sounds like a slippery slope. I mean, just how far do you go for the almighty dollar? But one of my questions is, according to the article in the Journal, there's a woman, a barista out there in Belfair, is 3 inches short of being naked, material-wise. What is the age limit on kids? 16-year-olds can drive, can they? What's the age limit on these places? I mean, you put something like that in there, you're going to have an incredible amount of teenage boys all of a sudden drinking coffee. And they're going to be lining up. How do you regulate that? I mean, most places you've got to have some kind of an age limit for these kind of activities. That's just a question I have.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Appreciate your comments, and that's something that we'll probably be looking into as we write our ordinance. All right, that ends the public comment portion of this, as Commissioner Pennell requested, and I think that gives us your thoughts, which has been very good. Now we can speak upon the issue if we want, it looks like. And so, Commissioner Pennell, Commissioner Olson, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
I do. I agree 100% with the idea of protecting young women. Obviously, that's something that really needs to be a concern. I'm not sure that just placing a moratorium on this business is the way to do it. I kind of think now that we jumped the gun a little bit, we overreacted. I agree that we needed to take another look at our ordinance, but we don't need to establish a moratorium to do that. Correct? We can take a look at the ordinance without establishing a moratorium. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can do that. The problem is that if you have a business that comes in and locates,
Right.
before you have regulations in place, you could have a non-conforming use.
Right, right. So I guess my suggestion at this point is to not continue the moratorium, but to continue looking at the ordinance and establishing some rules that would govern any business that came in, not specifically target one that we heard rumors about. That concerns me a little bit. I was here when we enacted the sexually oriented business moratorium in the first place, and there was a lot of discussion similar to what we've had now about that. And I said then, and I still say that the best way to regulate those types of businesses is to not patronize them. That's what happened to the one business that did go in. It lasted maybe a month because nobody went. It wouldn't be my choice to go get my coffee from somebody who was wearing pasties. So why would anybody else do that? Now, I agree that there are teenage boys, those type of people who sometimes aren't totally in control of what they choose to do, but presumably they have parents and peers who can influence them a lot more than a government can. So I would like to see us, I guess, take a look at putting some language in our already existing ordinance that regulates business, because I agree, it's not something that I want to see in downtown Shelton. But do it that way rather than continuing with a moratorium that I really think didn't have the best legs under it to begin with.
Commissioner Olson.
Everything that Commissioner Pennell said, I pretty much agree with, especially about the moratorium. I just wish we had a better mechanism for stopping a business for a little bit of study time without a moratorium. It seems real, punitive to a new business, especially one that we haven't addressed in the past. And I also hesitate on, as Mr. Cooper said, that they were dressed in short shorts. Short shorts are a little different than a bikini or a similar attire. So I hesitate on being the moral cop here in that, perhaps some of this could be taken care of in a conditional use language. Whereas if these type of businesses want to come into town, find a location for them. I agree, not downtown, but perhaps, in a place where they could operate, without exposing the public to what obviously nobody wants. But I don't think that we need to regulate it so severely that we drive it completely out, such as you stated what they're wearing over there. While I wouldn't want my daughter to do that, I don't think that we have the authority or shouldn't use that authority to regulate it so harshly. And generally, I do not support this downtown, but I don't think that we should be so punitive as to outlaw it completely. I think that there are places that want these. Maybe it's in the county, maybe it's up by Gateway, rental center or something, but I just want to be careful on how punitive we come down on these situations. So that's my comment on that.
All right, my comment is that we did exactly what we needed to do because we had no mechanism to stop anything from going in like this. We did a legal maneuver, which is called a moratorium, and we did the right thing, I believe. I believe that we need to take a look at this, and as from my talking to the community, the representation that we have here tonight is exactly what I faced with the people on the street. We are representing we represent you. We don't represent some government over in Olympia or wherever. And if we don't want it, we don't need it. We don't have to have it. We don't have to place it in any location. I think we don't need it here. That's my opinion. And I'm proud of that opinion. I'm not ashamed of that. And so, no, we don't need any applause. What we do need is to recognize that we are entrusted to do the best thing to represent you and your wishes for this community, and that's what I think we are experiencing. Now, that's the way it is. So at the moment, we do have a moratorium in place, and I think what we need to do as public officials is we need to write in our ordinance what the wishes of this community are concerning this issue. And I am very confident that we will do the best of our ability to put something in here which represents the wishes of this community. So that's what I have to say about this. And we appreciate you all coming out tonight. And unless there's any other comment at this time, what I would like to do, which I don't see any, I would like to close this public hearing, and we're going to open up another public hearing on transportation, and that will be presented to us by our city engineer, Mike Michael.
Pass out a recently updated project list here before I get started, so. All right, thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. What you have before you this evening is actually more of a housekeeping issue than anything. Back in August 2012, as required by RCW, the city adopted its annual update to the 6-year transportation improvement program. At that time, there were several projects that were either being completed, nearing completion, or at the time were believed would be in a position by the end of the year that they wouldn't need to be carried over into the current TIP, and ultimately the state's version of this. Unfortunately, due to contractor issues and other things going on with other projects, 3 of the projects we thought were going to be in a state to continue to move forward without further inclusion in the TIP didn't get to the point we needed. So we're in front of you this afternoon or this evening to update our TIP and add those projects back in. And then in addition, there was a late-breaking project that we found needed to be expedited as far as inclusion in our TIP and ultimately the state TIP to get some funding obligated for it. This program here and this list of projects is our way of tracking the transportation projects that need to be done and the ones that we have funding for. This allows us to be able to provide information to the state and federal government for inclusion in their plans so that we can have access to the funds that are available through various grant programs. This evening we're looking at items 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8 being included back on the STIP. These were projects that were originally believed to have been going to be at a point where they didn't need to be on here. And as I said, unfortunately, we didn't get there. We have some paperwork to do, and this is the first step in getting that paperwork done so we can start moving forward on these projects. These projects, in most cases, were budgeted. We do have one that as we get moving forward, if we're successful in getting it off the ground this year, aside from securing the funding, we'll need to do a budget modification later on and a project approval. But at this point, the key piece is to allow this to move forward so that it can be submitted to the state for a meeting coming up later this month for their inclusion in the state program, so that we can start the process for obligating the funds through Department of Transportation.
Questions or comments? I do recognize that in working with you and your department over this past year, how diligent you are on attempting to take a phenomenal task, which is repair the infrastructure and the road system in Shelton, Washington. And I commend you for the work that you and your department has done. And it's unbelievable how complicated engineering can be. But a lot of the projects that you have on here, we've been watching them, and I think you've done a great job in categorizing. People wonder, well, when's my road going to get done? it's all in here, and we're working on a huge project, and it is my desire that we continue on with that. And this is every year we have to review this, but this is a 6-year. Explain that a little bit.
It's state statute, and actually the federal statutes that drive a lot of it, mandate that we look at a rolling 6-year window of projects and identify those projects which we believe are high priority to us locally, and then as those are more regional, they're pushed up through the various segments of the levels of the funding agencies here. This is our list. It includes some that are just important to us. It includes some that are important to the Mason County region as a whole, and it also includes some that are important to an even broader range than that. We update this annually to make sure that we're looking at the most current information on that, which includes funding availability, which changes on sometimes a daily basis. So it is mandatory that a project be on this list if we're going to use federal funds on it, because as I said earlier, we have to pass that information up to the state's version of this program, which is where the federal funds come down through ultimately. So.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to open this up to any public testimony concerning this. If there's anyone like to speak on this issue, feel free to do that at this time. You just have to sign your name and address in on our sign-up sheet. And if not, yes, Mr. Davis, would you like to say something?
Yes, do I have to sign in again?
We already did. I'll just put a 0 over your X. So that means we're qualifying your previous signature.
Thank you. I'm just looking, this is the first time I've looked at this, so I'm speaking out of ignorance a bit here. The status P, what does status P mean in that, sir?
Status P is a proposed project.
Okay. And in order of priority, they're numbered in order of priority, so from most important to least important, is that my understanding?
Yes and no. It's somewhat an artifact of which time you're looking at this and which funding source is available. The projects will change in priority depending on the focus of the funding source we're looking at. So, like I said, it really depends on the funding source. Sometimes it's preservation, sometimes it's replacement. So a low priority project may not rank well for replacement, but it may rank well for preservation and restoration type jobs. So,
my comment is, may I suggest that on priority number 21, it says non-motorized plan, bicycles, trails, sidewalk. These are the quality of life issues. These are the quality of life amenities that make it worth living in the city of Shelton. And they're easy, at least as far as the bicycle path is concerned, it's easily attainable. Sometimes it's as little as just having a white line to separate the traffic area from the bicycle area. In other areas where the quality of life is high on the list of priorities, you see a lot of bicycle paths. You encourage, there's no downside to bicycle paths. There's only good things that happen with them. And I would encourage the city to move that priority from 21 up a little bit, so that every time you do a repaving effort or any time you do an arterial resurfacing, that you consider that an opportunity to make that a bicycle path incorporated into that effort, especially when it's aimed at going towards schools from the most densely populated area of Shelton, or to just a downtown business area. The more bicycles we have, the better health we have, and also the less cars we have, so the less traffic you have and less wear and tear. It's a wonderful thing to encourage, and I encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, any other public comment concerning this issue? Okay, if not, it looks like staff's recommendation is to, did you want to make that recommendation, what you want to do, Mr. Michael?
Yeah, staff is recommending that the commission approve resolution 10460313, adopting the amended project list for the TIP, and move that to the consent agenda for next week for that action.
Okay, at this time, I'm closing this public hearing, and I'm asking if my fellow commissioners concur with staff's recommendation.
Yes.
Yes, I think we all concur with this. So this will be placed on the consent agenda for March 25th, 2013. Thank you. Are my fellow commissioners prepared to hear the consent agenda? Could we please have a reading of the consent agenda?
Consent agenda, vouchers numbered 80531 through 80632 in the amount of $920,508.76. Payroll warrants numbered 68783 through 68972 in the amount of $591,146.60. Commission meeting minutes from business meeting of March 4th, 2013.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
I would move we approve the consent agenda as read.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Next is old business. We have no old business at this time. And as I addressed earlier, we're moving item number 3 to the front of the page, which is a singular wireless settlement. And it looks like our city administrator, Dave O'Leary, is going to present us with some information about that.
Actually, I'm going to defer to the attorney.
Well, as we set out on the briefing report, essentially, Singular Wireless, when it was AT&T Wireless, mistakenly paid telephone taxes on the portion of its service that was attributable to mobile data. In other words, use of internet on cell phones. And they did that not only in Shelton, but they did that in every city in all 50 states. There was a class action lawsuit a few years ago against Singular Wireless, alleging that under federal law, AT&T should not have collected this tax and remitted it to the local tax collectors. That class action was settled on the grounds that federal law, the Internet Tax Freedom Act, does prohibit local and state governments from taxing internet service. So Singular then sought a refund from pretty much every city in all 50 states. And Shelton, being one of them, claimed a refund of 5 years' worth of taxes in the amount of $7,863. We initially declined the refund and chose to wait and see what larger cities like Bellevue and Seattle might be able to get out of Singular. Well, Bellevue and Seattle have not done very well. The court recently ruled against them and in favor of Singular on their motion to dismiss. So it looks like Singular's claim is meritorious, and we do owe a refund. They've reduced the claim to approximately $5,200, so they're giving us a little bit of a break. And they're allowing us to choose between a refund and a credit. According to the finance department, a refund is easier to administer. So that's the choice they've made.
Any questions or comments?
I see that we really don't have a choice in this. It's pretty much a court decision. So I think we should go ahead and follow the finance department's plan to pay it right away.
Looks like it's just like what they call a no-brainer. I think we have to go forward and pay the bill, but it looks like we saved $2,500 or so. So sometimes waiting is a good thing to do. So it appears we have a concurrence on this and that this will be added to our consent agenda for March 25th. Okay? Now we're bouncing back, and we're going to go back to the what is written on your agenda as the first item of business, which is now, we'll just call that number 2 if we could, and then we'll call number 2 number 3. So let's go to the Civic Center rotating art recommendations by Mark Ziegler.
Thank you, Your Honor, Commissioners. Once again, bringing you recommendations for placement in the Civic Center rotating art gallery, which is located outside this room on the wall between the court and the police station. The Shelton Arts Commission called for submittals from local artists with a deadline of March 8th. 6 artists submitted for the gallery. The Arts Commission met on the 12th to jury those submittals, and I'm bringing forward the recommendations from 6 artists, as it so happens to be, tonight for placement in the gallery. Those artists are Clint Ferrara, who works in photography. He's got 4 pieces. I believe you've seen the copies of the work, correct? Kathy Ross, who works in tin sculpture, 5 pieces from her. Stephanie Hansen, 1 artwork in acrylic. Peter Candelin has 3 pieces in the recommendation, and both oil and acrylic. Christine Armand, 1 piece, and she works in glisse, is the medium, and Dixie Higbee has 1 art piece, which is an oil medium. With the Commission's recommendation, we would have art up on April 2nd, and a artist reception scheduled for April 15th, Monday the 15th, from 5 to 6:30 here in the Civic Center. Staff's recommendation at this point is to place the approval of the 6 artists and their work on the consent agenda for March 25th.
Any questions or comments?
It continues to amaze me how varied these artists are in their work, and how I don't recognize any of these from past placements.
1 artist has been placed in the past.
But as long as we've been doing this, to get continually new and different and really outstanding entries is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, it's nice to see.
Well, looks good. You're doing a great job. This rotates every 3 months, is that correct?
Exactly right.
And just for the public's consumption here, that's the wall outside of this courtroom here. That whole wall, every 3 months, has a whole new list of different art hung on it. And so, anyway, it looks like we are in concurrence on this issue, and that we will place this on the consent agenda for March 25th, 2013. Thank you. Next, we have Department of Ecology, Coordinated Prevention Grant Application, Senior Planner Jason Doze.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the Commission. And actually, today I'm wearing my recycling coordinator's hat.
All right.
Not the senior planner for a few minutes. The City of Shelton has applied for the Department of Ecology's Coordinated Prevention Grant Program since at least 1994, when our residential recycling program was established. The funding helps offset a large portion of the recycling coordinator's wages. It helps offset a large portion of all our education and outreach materials, including our waste and recycling calendar, all our informational brochures, our recycle guide, which we now have in English and Spanish. Did that last year with funding through the program. They helped us pay for hiring an interpreter to basically translate all our documents, because we do have a rather large Spanish-speaking population now, and that's really helped in my ability, because yo hablo un poco, so I really need the graphics and the translated materials to help some of these folks we have out there. Basically, what I'm asking for tonight is the Commission to approve us to submit the application for the funding. And in a nutshell, what the vision is for this next 2-year cycle, thank goodness it's in a 2-year cycle this time rather than the, I think, 1-year cycle 2 years ago, a 1.5-year cycle after that, and it really on a paperwork, and you guys don't want to hear me talk every 6 months, I don't think, about this. So this will put it off for 2 years.
Once every year or so.
There you go. So the kind of the highlights, as it were, of this proposal include, for the 2 years, a total amount of $155,026.67. I'm surprised I narrowed it down that much. That would be paid in a 75-25 split, basically. The state pays for 75% of that, the city pays for 25% of that. And what it would pay for is approximately 66 hours per month of the recycling coordinator's wages, and what the recycling coordinator does is, aside from developing the materials, tracking tonnages for waste related to recycling, our yard waste programs, I also act as the point of contact for basically nearly all the service, I don't want to say issues, but any service questions customers might have. That would include, just basic questions on what's my recycle day. But it gets a lot more detailed, making site visits to like multifamily sites where maybe they're struggling to get the correct items in their recycle containers. It deals with going out to visit just single-family residents that maybe our drivers flag as, not fully understanding what's supposed to go in what container. So we do that personal touch that I think a lot of larger communities just can't do. And I'll physically go out to the site and speak with people and, talk with them about what's allowed to go in what containers. And we work out really a lot of the issues larger communities struggle with just on a one-on-one basis, right out at the person's yard. The coordinator is also available to go to schools, and I often talk to usually younger kids about recycling, composting, reduce, reuse, recycle, pushing that mantra. Before you purchase a product, do you even need it? That's the first question. Aside from recycling it, do you even need it in the first place? You try to just get these thought processes working with the kids. The position is also the point of contact for people to figure out what to do with odd materials, be it styrofoam, be it oils, paints, aerosol containers, bullets. I actually had my first question, what do I do with a lot of bullets? I had to call around and figure out where you can dispose of bullets legally. Don't throw them in the fire, is the moral of the story on that one. Long story short, it's basically a status quo application I'm requesting, but we do want to expand one main thing that actually the idea came from DOE asking us if we thought this was a good fit. One of the things we want to do is purchase up to 24 recycling containers for placement in different public areas, including our 2 main parks, and then also out at a couple of the bus stops right here in front of the Civic Center, as a matter of fact. And the idea is to do it as kind of a pilot program, see how they're used. If they wind up being used as trash cans, we may rethink trying to provide them everywhere. But it provides basically a manageable couple of locations where we can really push not only outreach in the form of signage and such on the cans, but it's a manageable amount where staff can effectively monitor and handle the recycling. And hopefully we can learn from any mistakes we might make, like if we buy unclear signage or what have you. I mean, any number of items, it just makes it easier to do it in a smaller location and track results rather than blow it up all over the city and figure out, oh man, we shouldn't have done that. Easier to fix smaller projects than it is the large ones. So the idea would be we would track this over the course of the 2-year grant life cycle, and if it's successful, we would request more funding in future bienniums to place more around the city. And if it's not successful, we'd figure out a way to correct it, maybe ask for funding to help correct it, make it work better. The other one is to allow for the purchase of up to 150 sets of residential recycling set containers, paper and containers, because a lot of our containers we got initially with the dual stream program, we got a surplus from the city of Seattle. And so they were basically already used when we got them. And now they're to the point where they're very used, and a lot of them frankly need to be replaced. We're trying to turn over to a specific one type of container rather than have multiple containers. So we have to hunt for parts. We can basically stockpile parts for a single type of container. I won't name the company name, don't want to make plugs, but we're going with a single type, and it just makes it a lot easier for maintenance and upkeep. So in a nutshell, what I'm requesting is that I think I've said that already, the mayor to be authorized to sign the certification and agreement form that basically allows us to submit the grant application to the state.
Questions or comments?
I'd just like to commend Jason for his enthusiasm that he has. I don't think there's anybody better in the city well suited for this this recycling job. I spend a lot of time walking in the city, and I'm constantly carrying a bag. You know, the condition of some neighborhoods is just horrible. So I think anything we can do to advocate recycling, reuse is a good idea, and that it also helps to keep one of the few rates in the city possibly from rising, and that's our garbage rates. So I think this is money well spent.
Questions or comments? This is for the public's information. In the grant, the city matches 25% of the funds.
Correct.
So grants are really good. We do have to put in the 25%. And has that been accounted for? Do we have that? Is that part of the budget?
Yes, I'm sorry, that is in the general fund for the recycling portion of the waste utility. So we wouldn't do the extra items, the replacement of containers through the program. We wouldn't do the public recycling program, but the wages would be paid out of the general fund anyway. So this is just...
Yes, Mr. O'Leary.
Your Honor, just for the record, I know this is coming out of the solid waste fund rather than the general fund.
Well, that's what I meant.
I know.
It's always good to say the right fund.
Sorry.
I looked at Steve, and
Good
Steven looked at me.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm not a bean counter.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, it looks like...
Good clarification.
It looks like you have a concurrence, I suppose, from this group on taking this and placing this on the consent agenda for March 25th. So, well done. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it.
Last item on our new business is number 4, and that's a sewer comprehensive plan and rate analysis, and that will be presented to us by Mr. Steve Goins, our Community and Economic Development Director.
Stand up here, actually. Terry has a presentation that will be part of the dialogue this evening. Just in general, overarching, looking at this from far away, I wanted to provide some overview as to what's happened in terms of improvements and needs that we've addressed within our sewer utility over the years. We're in the throes of finalizing a comprehensive plan update for the utility that will forecast what we're doing over the next 6 and 20 years. And as part of that, we've done a financial analysis of the utility. And we'll discuss the rates that we're proposing as part of this presentation. But sort of as a precursor to that, giving you some description of sort of how we got here, what's happened over the years and why. I start off with this slide only because it sort of puts everything in perspective in terms of the need here. The hierarchy of needs here is not, in fact, some self-actualization, but we're providing some more basic needs here. We're providing a sanitary city to live in. Civilizations before sewers came along had a tough time dealing with this, but as people understood sickness and medicine, they made the connection. And we're down here in the bottom in security and protection somewhere, but it's a very basic service that we provide, but an important one for the city. In terms of background, the city's been under administrative order from Ecology for a number of years. This is a quote from one of the letters we have. These orders have been modified over time. In 2008, there was a concern about the amount of I&I inflow and intrusion into the system, and the collection system, as is quoted here, becomes hydraulically overloaded when heavy rains occur. What folks were experiencing out and about in the community were surcharging manholes, parks that were being flooded with raw sewage, and other issues that Ecology said, you must take care of this. You must do something to address these concerns. In more recent times, we've had problems that in relation to the I&I have resulted in permit violations from our downtown plant. The downtown plant is upgraded now, but at the time we were dealing with this, we had a very old plant that was past its design capacity, and we were trying to understand how to go about taking care of these orders and address these sanitary issues. Ecology was asking us to be proactive. So a little bit of a description about our inflow and intrusion, particularly in the downtown basin. Some of the systems that were here were built in the 20s and 30s. At the time, the technology was to actually build a leaking sewer system, and that was part of the way to address effluent, was to allow it to leach into the soil, into the groundwater, and just get rid of it. What we know now is those leaky pipes are causing a lot of this inflow and intrusion that we're dealing with, that they also affect the quality of the groundwater. So particularly in the downtown area where we have a high groundwater table, there was a heightened need to deal with these I&I issues. Soil conditions play a part in this. Some areas in town are different than others. Again, the downtown being most acute. Also has creeks nearby that are affecting the movement of this groundwater. And another issue that is part of this equation is other connections that aren't part of our sanitary sewer at all. Folks that are just connecting to get rid of stormwater often will make a connection to the sewer system to deal with that. The second part of this was our treatment plant and dealing with the capacity needs. The I&I, particularly in high flow events, would overwhelm our system. We couldn't provide the treatment we needed to provide. We would exceed our solids treatment capacity, and that was really an effect of the system just needing this upgrade, not designed for a city of this size. And again, violations of our discharge permit basically on a monthly basis. Early on in the discussions with our regional partners on how to address this, there was a plan that was rolled out to update the downtown plant to accept effluent from our regional partners, the State Patrol and Department of Corrections. Over time, that plan was modified to what we have today, and that's building a satellite facility. That satellite facility is serving our regional partners, but it also provides us the capacity to meet new development and other customers in the northern part of the UGA. It produces a Class A reclaimed water, which is a nice byproduct to have. We can use that for just about any purpose, but for drinking water, certainly for irrigating fields and those types of things, industrial uses. So we have a commodity that's a byproduct of this that I think is just an added attraction. We are, by completing the satellite plant, reducing the amount of volume of effluent that's discharged into Oakland Bay. As you're well aware, Oakland Bay is one of the most prolific aquaculture fields in the West Coast, and we're helping to do our part to preserve that through these measures. This particular element of the project was finished in 2010 at a price tag of over $15 million, but most of that cost was borne by our regional partners. And they are also paying for the service of maintaining and building reserves to maintain this plant long term. And that's not a photo of somebody drinking some of our byproduct. I just thought that was kind of funny. This is an aerial view of the plant when it was about 95% complete. Folks maybe in the audience haven't seen that before, but this was designed so it can be built and expanded in phases. This initial phase is enough to accommodate our partners and provide the city some capacity to take on new customers, but there's enough room in the surrounding area to build 2 additional phases. So the long-term plan is to see that come through, and that's again spelled out in our CIP as a longer range endeavor. But this facility has the capacity to increase 3-fold in terms of its daily ability to handle effluent from the northern area, northern Shelton UGA. Within our approach, we've landed on a sequence of events here. Some of these have been accomplished, as you see here. We initiated with Basin 1, the core area of the downtown that was completed in 2000. Some time went by, but we eventually designed and constructed Basin 2 in more recent time. That was completed in 2008. We're currently working in Basin 5, which is basically the Hillcrest area around the Olympic Highway South. That work's been going on over a year, and we believe in the next 6 to 8 months, probably less, the construction side of that will be done. We'll have close out and other types of things to drag on that project over time, but the construction end of it is nearing its end. And that's a very large basin that we expect to complete. We've initiated the design for Basin 3, which is the final basin in the downtown area. And we'll talk about that a little further in the presentation here, but the goal is to be prepared so that as the funding mechanism we choose is available, that we're ready to move forward and complete the last of the downtown basins. Our plan is to also tackle some of this I&I work incrementally, and I'll speak about this in some detail, but we want to move from this current and past practice of tackling these basins as large projects and try to bite off pieces of a basin with some maintenance activities that we'll do over time with our city crews. We think this will save us a whole lot of money and avoid the need to borrow these large sums of money to tackle these basins. We can incorporate this into our operations. In addition to all that work, we had a couple sewer lines that were in Goldsboro Creek, and you may recall that Ecology was also asking us to address those. We removed the force main out of Goldsboro Creek in 2007. There's a bridge now on the east side of the creek. If you go past First Street and you see that little green structure there, that's the force main now out of the creek. The second portion of that was a gravity main that was crossing the creek on the west side. That was completed as part of this Neelam Park Pump Station project, which the picture is showing in partial completion. That pipe is still in the creek, but it is not essentially used as our day-to-day operation. It's only there right now as for emergency needs and to help us to better understand what we need to do to most effectively stabilize the creek bottom, whether that pipe serves some purpose or not, and that's part of an ongoing discussion. But we are no longer in a position where some damage by a tree root or something coming down the creek during a high flow event would bust a pipe and cause a catastrophic discharge into the Oakland Bay and affect our aquaculture industries here. So that portion has been done and it is fully completed. Describing some of the work we did with the downtown plant, we addressed our long-term capacity needs. We increased the solids handling capacity of the system by 100%. This takes us to a 20-year planning horizon, certainly for the downtown area, and I'll speak to how that addresses our larger UGA area in a moment. It also, along with the I&I development that has occurred, provided us some certainty for new development, and I think that was a big milestone in itself. You may recall a few years ago we were in a moratorium for sewer connections. We had a waiting list, if you will, for folks that could come and connect, but we had a limitation on that, and this was a struggle for any large development coming into Shelton to describe how are you going to address our sewer needs. We have limited capacity, we have I&I issues all over town. We have a great deal more certainty than we had then. This was a big project though. It cost $38 million. It's now complete. This is what it looks like from the air. This is a huge undertaking. One of the biggest projects in the history of Shelton. Offers a number of environmental benefits, some of which I've described, but in terms of the plant operation, we added a process to remove nitrogen from the effluent. This will help the biological aspects of what's going on in the estuary and the interaction there with the fish and the aquatic life. We changed from a chlorine treatment to a UV treatment, so the effluent now does not have a chlorine component to it. And we incorporated a slack tide discharge tank. That tank allows us to retain effluent during slack tides, allows better mixing to occur as we release this effluent during tidal movement, and we extended the outflow pipe as well, I believe 96 feet. These environmental benefits are paying dividends in Oakland Bay. I believe 280 additional acres have been opened up for shellfish harvesting, in part to this activity. It's improved the natural features of the Oakland Bay, particularly the salmon movement through the estuary, and it's reduced that TSS stands for total suspended solids within our discharge. But wait, there's more, as Jason would say. We also added a process so that we now are producing a Class A biosolid. This is a fertilizer that you've probably heard in other jurisdictions. We now have the ability to produce that, and we're working through the final issues with having that in full production. This, as a benefit to us, produces or reduces the amount of solids that's in our discharge. It helps us to provide a fertilizer to the community for free, and we have the capacity within that system to accept effluent from other jurisdictions. So with this can be a benefit that the region could gain from, not just for Shelton.
Not to break up your thing there, but now I've been told that fertilizer can be put on my vegetable garden. Is that a true statement?
Mike, is that a true statement?
Based on the information I have given, it can be used for anything. You might use commercially bought fertilizer from Home Depot.
That's my understanding as well.
So I'm excited about that part of your presentation.
We'll have you back up the truck tomorrow. How about that?
There you go. I need it.
So transitioning to the dollars and cents of all this. Providing some figures here for the I&I work and our capital work moving forward. This year our capital investment is going to be about $7 million. That's predominantly completion of Basin 5. Our investment in 2014 is $5.2 million, and that anticipates that we will move forward with the Basin 3 construction project. Or as you can see, though, our investment in 2015 starts to diminish considerably. Part of our objective is to try to cap the amount of capital projects that the utility is taking on and reduce the amount of debt that we are continuing to accrue, and we're transitioning to that position as part of this comp plan effort. These last points sort of describe the magnitude of these projects, and I think that's worth describing. Basins 1 and 2 combined were just under 22,000 lineal feet of pipe that was replaced. As you can see, in Basin 5 is nearly twice the size of both of those basins, almost 8 miles of pipe. Basin 3 is almost the size of both of those basins combined, a little less. Basins 6 and 7 are described there as well. Those are newer basins. They're modern in some respects. They're certainly pipe that's aged, and there's pipe that's relatively new. So tackling those is a different approach anyway. Our objective is to start to look at basins 4 and 6. Basin 4 is a very small basin, and just continually make steps to improve the I&I issues that we're dealing with, to monitor that, but to, again, track away from this large basin-wide effort that requires a lot of debt capacity. So as we describe the sewer comprehensive plan, we'll be bringing that for you in the coming weeks. That plan, just again in its larger sense, was developed by, in part, taking a lot of planning work that we've done over the course of the last 15 or 20 years and combining that into a single plan, which there's been a lot of effort done to study and analyze our sewer systems, but not a real planned update for quite some time. So this plan provides that single document. It will assess what we need to do as a utility to provide service to the entire UGA. That has never really been analyzed before. Part of that is what infrastructure is needed to eventually serve the Johns Prairie area, and in particular the industrial development out there. It updates the 6-year and 20-year efforts, again, trying to assess what our needs are for long-term and for near-term. And again, we'll hopefully have that here in a few weeks in its completed fashion and begin a public process and discussion with agencies and others as we formally adopt that plan. This next slide describes some of the capital improvements that you're going to see in that plan. And there's some abbreviations here. But in essence, this moving down from the top, we anticipated Basin 3 and included that in the plan. How much that's going to cost is unknown. We're making estimates, though, and those estimates varied. Our own engineers estimated this project. Our design firm has been pretty far along in the design and have refined their estimates accordingly along the way. Our consultant that prepared the sewer comprehensive plan looked at this just in terms of lineal feet of pipe, size of material, and sort of did a quantities estimate analysis of the project and came up with their own estimate. Their estimate is a little higher. It's at $3.8 million, but that is the number that we used in our analysis moving forward. So there's a little bit of a, I believe it's a conservative number in terms of what this project may really cost, but that's what you'll see in the plan. The plan describes these trunk lines within the city that we need to address over time, and mainly these aren't necessarily an issue because of I&I issues, they're an issue because of capacity issues, that we have certain pipes in limited areas that are approaching their capacity now, and as new development occurs, we need to figure out how to upsize those or make sure we can accommodate development as it occurs. In particular, the trunk line 1 that's described here is a line that runs in Mountain View that will, we anticipate, serve the Shelton Hills development, particularly the phase 1 of that development, and that line is reaching its capacity right now. So we're going to be discussing with Shelton Hills on how to address this particular aspect of our infrastructure needs as part of their phase 1. The other trunk projects, the trunk lines are smaller in scale, and they're in different parts of town, and they're not as much of a heightened concern as that particular trunk 1. But we've built those into the plan as well, and overall those will take about $1.2 million to address all of them over a 20-year horizon. The plan includes second and third phases of the satellite plan, as I earlier described. Those are expensive endeavors, but the first, or the second phase, if you will, is not anticipated. It's anticipated around 1919 in the plan, but we don't believe that will necessarily play out as things go on. What we are anticipating is to include in part of the Shelton Hills development of their systems a diverter that will allow us to divert our effluent flows between the satellite plant and the downtown plant. And by doing that, one of the benefits will be to extend the capacity of the satellite plant. Otherwise, we would have to begin implementing a second phase sooner. But by being able to shuttle some of that effluent down to our downtown plant, we can extend the time frame that we need to actually implement phase 2. That will probably go beyond that 2020 horizon. And it's not unlikely that phase 3 might even approach that 2030 horizon. The last item here is a new satellite plant in Johns Prairie. The cost associated with that is in the slide. It's about $23 million. And of course, that's a long-term item that's probably on the far end of the 20-year horizon, and that's not built in. Neither one of those projects, in fact, are built into the analysis in terms of what we need to do with the rates now. It's something to think about, but it's not in any of the rate analysis that we're contemplating at this time. So before I get into the rate increase, this sort of tells the story of all those projects and all those endeavors and what that means in terms of the cost of the utility. Basin 5 was secured through 2 loans. One was through the Public Works Trust Fund. That's the first bullet here. We are already paying back that loan. We started paying it back in 2011. The debt service on that loan is about $346,000. That's an annual payment. Second bullet describes the other funding source for the Basin 5 work. This was a USDA bond. That annual payment is about $213,000. We anticipate that we'll need to commence that payment in around 2014. That taking the project to its completion, getting closeout documents and all of that will probably take us into 2014, but no further than that. At that point, we will be making payments on that bond as well. The bottom bullet describes the payments for the wastewater treatment plant, the big project. We've started paying that with a half payment in 2012 of nearly $500,000. The annual payments for that loan are just under $1 million, and that will commence this year. We will owe the USDA $1 million this year of new money for debt service on the wastewater treatment plant. So how are we going to pay for all that? We have two scenarios that we've developed here as part of our analysis. One would increase the rates 22% for the remainder of this year, which is 8 months. And that scenario, the scenario one, assumes that we will need to find additional capital funding to complete Basin 3. And that's built into that rate analysis. And in fact, it shows here that we're anticipating that we would begin to make $169,000 debt payments in 2014 to start paying that debt, and that is included in this pro forma. Scenario 2 is an annual rate increase of 20% for this year, but that assumes that we would move forward with Basin 3 if we receive grant funding, that would be grant money that we would not be need to build into our debt reserves or pay it back. As part of scenario 1, I should describe this further. We anticipate with Basin 5 that we are not going to utilize all the monies that we have requested through our loan. That in fact some of that money could be put toward Basin 3, and that the balance would be transferred to fund that, and that the other portion of that, the unmet portion, would be somehow circulated through a different loan. That is not the scenario 2. Scenario 2 is 100% grant money. We would return the unused portion of the Basin 5 funds as part of that rate structure.
Steve, can I interrupt you for a minute there? I see a lot of jaws dropping out there at 20 and 22 and 20%. Can you equate that to a dollar figure so that it's a little bit more palatable?
I can. Here it is. So the average single-family residence in town uses 738 cubic feet of water per month. This is the average. Some folks are more and some folks are less, but on a total, that's our average. So the top portion describes what your current rate is today. You have a base rate of $26.65, and your consumption charge, as you can see, is $0.0533, or just over a nickel per cubic foot. Combined, your average single-family sewer charge is $65.99. Again, that's average. Under the proposed rates, the base rate and the consumption charge would increase 20% on scenario 2. That would change your base rate to $31.98. That would change your consumption charge to 0.0624 cents per cubic foot. And that would affect your sewer rate by roughly $13. It would be, as proposed, $79.21. So for the average user, the average single family, that's the increase that would be reflected on their bill for their sewer charge.
And if you take less showers, you can keep the rate the same, right?
Well, it depends. How many less showers you're talking about? Our community as a whole has done a good job trying to conserve water, and that usage is probably a little less than you'd find in other cities. But our citizens have done a lot to conserve water over time, and I think they've done their share to kind of maintain low rates themselves. So just before I finish up here, we've got some other factors I just wanted to spell out. Those debt service payments that I described earlier result in a revenue deficiency of just over $1 million for the utility for this year. That's why we're requesting this. In both scenarios, scenario 1 or 2, the assumption was that we would collect that new rate for the final 8 months of the year. And part of doing that is the timing of which this action is taken. In order to be able to bill and collect that new rate, we need to have the Commission consider this ordinance this evening, take a second reading as part of a public hearing next week, and be able to advertise that in the paper before the end of the month. That will allow this schedule to be maintained. If we deviate from that, it will probably mean that we have to have a little bit higher rate than I'm proposing here, because we'll have less months in essence to collect that difference, that $1 million that's on that bullet 1. In both these scenarios, what we tried to do is to soften this rate over 2 years, and this analysis would require, as part of a second step, a rate increase for 2014 as well. But we are not trying to either land all of that increase on 1 year or the other. We're trying to expand it over a longer period of time. As part of what we considered in our capital work, I described this briefly, that we would add $200,000 to our operations commencing in 2016 as a way to avoid borrowing further capital for these large basin projects. That is also built into the reserve or the revenue needs for the utility. And the rates do assume that we would commence this work for the satellite plant phase 2 in 2019, and that's, again, conservative. We don't believe that that will be necessary, particularly if we move forward with a diverter project that we anticipate in Shelton Hills. We think we can stave off that need, and in turn stave off the need to reserve those revenues for some time. So there's a little bit of a conservative element to this. There's some uncertainty in this. We don't know what direction we're going with Basin 3 just yet. We don't know how fast Shelton Hills will move. So that's playing into our recommendation. We believe that it would be prudent to adopt a rate increase as soon as you can to allow us to be able to collect these increased revenues right away, but not to adopt a rate increase for 2014, to allow us to have some time to see what our options are in Basin 3 and get more information and come back later in the year with more precise information before you move forward with a 2014 or a longer term approach for a rate hike. I think that closes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Steve. According to my notes, what we need to do is announce this as a first reading of this. Is that correct? I don't see that in, actually, I wrote that based upon what you said. This would qualify as a first reading. Oh, there's more fine print to be reading. And by the way, I'm sure my fellow commissioners do this also, but almost every meeting I attend with our city administrator and staff, I beg them to find money other than the ratepayers. I mean, I beg them to find. I says, listen, if there's ever anything out there, any grants, and we are moving forward, we've hired a lobbyist to try and get additional funding for Basin 3. I am constantly looking for other ways than to continue to raise on the ratepayers. But if you lived here very long, you've understood that Shelton has gone through a huge change concerning all this work that we've done over the years. And the bottom line, it was a broken system and it had to be fixed. So anyway, that's my little statement on that.
Steve, I know you were hesitant about saying anything about 2014, but I really think that, we should take the medicine now and kind of give a little indication to what you're talking about for 2014 also.
The rate structure would include a 20% increase for 2014 also. At that point, we would have righted the ship, if you will, and the rate increases would largely just reflect a cost of living increase or inflation adjustment. And around 2016, I believe, it begins to build reserves for these other larger projects that are on the horizon. And that's part of the uncertainty, is how soon will we need to do that. But it's pretty certain we're going to need a similar increase in 2014. But we don't know how much yet, because in part we don't know how Basin 3 will be funded, or if we choose not to fund that project.
Yeah, I just wanted to, it's kind of hard medicine to swallow that we're going to have close to a 40% increase in the next 2 years. But I think it's important to put it out there. Like the Mayor said, that this has been a long time coming, 35, 40 years of nothing being done. and all of a sudden having to correct it in the last 4 or 5 years, that now we got to pay for it. So we don't have a lot of choice.
And I think you brought up an important point too, Steve, that part of this is building up reserves for the next big thing that comes along, because that was part of the thing that we found ourselves in 4 or 5 years ago, is that these things all needed to be replaced and we didn't have any money saved up to do it. So we really looked long and hard at any kind of funding mechanism that we could find. We put together a regional partnership that helped us tremendously, but ultimately it needs to be paid for, and now we're having to face that, and I really don't want to put that on future generations of having to look at a plant that's past its lifespan and no way to replace it. So we need to think about building up some reserves so that we're not in that position again. And I don't mean to be flip. I know that it's a difficult thing to do, and all three of us up here are also ratepayers. So we're in the same boat. But I remember a man that we worked with fairly early on in this process, and he told me that the only two things you need to know about sewers is that it runs downhill and it costs a whole lot. And we're finding out that is true. So I don't want to make light of it by any means, but the consequences of not doing the projects were just ones that we really couldn't look at. I mean, we would have endangered our shellfish industry greatly. I wasn't going to go there. We were in a position already of not allowing any other building to take place just because we couldn't handle the sewage that it would generate. So, the consequences were to stop growing, and in some cases to go backwards, and I really didn't think that was a viable alternative. So we find ourselves now in a position of having to pay for that, and it's unfortunate that this generation is having to pay for some of the things that past generations didn't do, but that happens. And I think if we all look at it as a way to help future generations, that makes it a little more palatable, hopefully. For me, it does, anyway.
At this point, I feel comfortable okaying this ordinance for this first reading for a 1-year period of the 20% increase.
That's what the ordinance contains.
That's right. And so that's where I am on this meeting tonight. So next week, that's right, March 25th at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Written statements are accepted, and we can pack the room full and we can talk for hours if we need to, or 1 hour and 59 minutes. And it's important. It's important to me. I mean, literally, I lay awake at night trying to think of other ways to pay for this stuff. And we are at a point to where we have to pay this bill, and we are seeking other avenues, other grant opportunities as we go through this process, and hopefully there will be some other money to help in future endeavors. So, are we ready? Yes.
Your Honor, just another thing. One of the reasons that we wanted to hold this meeting here tonight, we wanted to record that presentation so people would have a chance to see it from the community, the ones that will need to pay it. So we should have this, our video on YouTube within the next couple of days, and we'll advertise that. And we're hoping, and we don't know whether we can get this done or not, we're hoping we can take maybe some testimony over YouTube as well. We're not sure how to do that. We've not done it before, but if you want to offer written testimony in that way, that's open to you. You can send us a letter, or you can come and talk next week as well. So anyhow.
All right. Are we ready for the reading?
Yeah, and you'll be able to get to the YouTube site through our website, to the city's website. There'll be a link to it. So.
Okay, are we ready for a reading of this ordinance? Here so.
Ordinance number 1824-0313, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington relating to sewer service, amending Shelton Municipal Code sections 14.28.020 through 14.28.060.
Okay. I don't have any other print on what else we do at this point. So do we need to take a motion to approve this? Nope. First reading.
One more thing. In the Washington legislature, we have a request into the two capital committees in the House and Senate to get capital dollars to help us with the Basin 3 project and another project as well. So if you have a relationship with a legislator and you have a stake in keeping the rates down, that might be you might want to think about that. So thank you.
All right. Very good. Next on our agenda, we're almost done with this meeting, is an administration report.
I'll be out starting tomorrow through the end of the week. Oh, sorry. I'll be out starting tomorrow through the end of the week to a conference, and then I'll be back a week from today.
Okay. There's a general public comment. We've heard a lot from the public tonight about these issues, and so if there's no one else that needs to say something right at this moment, we can move on to administration. Final touches. Yes, Mr. Clark. Our new Public Works Director.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Real quick touch, I was encouraged by staff to touch on this tonight. I'm sorry I didn't get it on your written touch, but due to the order time associated with the budgeted truck, the dump truck that it was in the budget for this year, they need to order it right away. So this is going to be a 12-yard dump truck, which will then allow us 2 12-yard dump trucks. The main reason is the paving that we do in August. The nearest batch plant for asphalt now is in Nisqually. So it's almost a 2-hour round trip to get asphalt back, and they need 2 trucks in order to do an efficient job of asphalting. So it's $255,000 when it's all delivered, and so you'll see more on the briefing next week.
Any other administration final touches? Yes.
We are expecting to bring forward a final acceptance document on the Key Street project next week. So, barring any last-minute changes, we will hopefully be there.
Okay. Any more?
One more. Jason asked me to, I guess, do a brief Jason commercial on the Shoreline Master Program update. He has done a great job of trying to get the word out to the public, and that continues. We're having what I'll call a process, a public hearing that will leave comment open for an extended period of time for folks to have a chance to review this lengthy document and provide staff with comment and direction. Jason has the document in draft form on the city website. It's very accessible. Folks can look at it chapter at a time. There's a hard copy at the library. There's a hard copy at the Community Development Department at the desk. And he'll be talking on the radio about it. So we're just trying to get the word out mainly about the Shoreline Master Plan update and that process that will ensue. A long discussion with the community. I think that's it for me.
Okay. Very good. Our next regular commission meeting will be Monday, March 25th at 2 p.m. Preceding that will be a Shelton Metropolitan Park District meeting on that same day, 15 minutes before at 1:45 p.m. This meeting is adjourned.